Let's talk about resistance training. Now, I'm always going on about resistance training and how important it is. Whatever age you are, whether you're male or female, resistance training is a really important part of your health and fitness. But how hard should you train? This is a really important question. How do you know that you're pushing yourself enough? And what sort of range of effort should you put in to your training? Well, there are all kinds of ways of working it out. There's a thing called the RPE scale, where you gauge how hard you're working on a scale of 1 to 10. But today I'm going to make it really simple. I'm just going to talk about 3 different categories of training and how hard you're working when you're doing your resistance. We all use our muscles all the time. Your muscles are being used to move yourself around, move your limbs, pick things up, all kinds of stuff in your everyday life. But in order to train them, in order to maintain strength and fitness, you do need to exert them a little bit more than that. So you can do that by doing body weight exercises, by lifting weights, by using resistance bands. There's all kinds of ways of doing it. But we need to know how far we need to push that. So let's look at those 3 categories. The first one is called muscular overload. And I'm going to define muscular overload as any resistance training that uses your muscles to a greater degree than you would in everyday life. In other words, you're lifting something heavier than you ever would in your normal life. You're doing a movement that is different to what you might do every day. Muscular overload is enough to give you some health benefits and fitness benefits. So as long as you're lifting a weight that is a little bit heavier than any kind of lifting you do in your daily life, as I said, like lifting shopping, putting things up into a high shelf, all that kind of stuff, as long as you're going a little bit further than that, you are getting fitness benefits. However, we might want to take things a little bit further. So the second thing on my list is muscular fatigue. Now, muscular fatigue is when you keep lifting a weight or exerting resistance on your muscles to such a point that you start feeling your muscles fatiguing. So, for example, if I pick up a weight, let's imagine I'm doing a shoulder press and I'm picking up a couple of dumbbells and I'm pushing them and I keep going until I start feeling a little bit of fatigue in my muscles, maybe a little bit of muscular aching, possibly a burning sensation, and you know you're fatiguing those muscles. And at that point, you know you've done enough to reach muscular fatigue. Muscular fatigue is a really good way of training, and it's better than muscular overload. So I would recommend that you try and do some resistance training to the point that you start feeling that fatigue in your muscles, maybe a little bit of burning sensation, that kind of thing. The real gym rats, they never do a set that doesn't involve muscular failure. And this is the 3rd thing on the list, muscular failure. And muscular failure is when you work a muscle to the point that you really cannot do any more reps. And when I say you really can't do any more reps, I mean you really can't. Now, usually your mind gives in before your body, so you might think you can't do any more, but actually your body might be able to do 1 or 2 more repetitions. So if I was to say to you while you're exercising, I've got a suitcase with £1 million in it, or $1 million, and I will give that to you if you do 1 more rep. Then you do 1 more rep, that means you hadn't achieved muscular failure on the previous rep. It got to go to the point that you really, even if I gave you £1 million for another rep, you absolutely couldn't do it. Your muscles are physically incapable of lifting that weight again. So muscular failure is like the holy grail of weight training. But for most of us, you don't have to do that. You don't have to achieve muscular failure. You certainly don't have to achieve it every time. There are exercises that are impossible to achieve muscular failure. For example, if I'm doing a bench press, I can be lifting a weight that is greater than I would in normal life, and that's going to be muscular overload. I can go on until I feel that sensation of burning in my chest, and that is muscular fatigue. As long as I rack up the bar safely at the end of the set, it's quite safe to do bench press until you reach muscular fatigue. However, if I try and go for muscular failure, and I get to that point in my bench press that the weight is so heavy that I push myself, I struggle through the reps, and I get to the point that I cannot do another rep at all, I'm stuck. You can only do that if you've got someone with you, someone nearby who can help you with the bar. So bench press is out. You can reach muscular failure without doing bench press if you want to work your chest, just by doing press-ups. So if I'm doing press-ups, I can do 10, 20, 30, I can keep going until I can't do any more. Most exercises, however, that you're using dumbbells, you can safely go to muscular failure if you're doing bicep curls, if you're doing lateral raise, or if you're doing that shoulder press again. I can keep going with those heavy weights, really push myself until that very last rep I can just about achieve. And then if I try and do one more, I fail. And then at least I can safely put the weights down onto the floor after that final rep, and I have reached muscular failure. So you don't have to reach muscular failure. You don't even have to reach muscular fatigue to achieve some benefits in muscular strength and endurance. Yeah, you can choose what level you go to, but if you want to see gains, if you want to see increases in strength or endurance in your muscles, the further you push yourself, then the quicker you're going to get those results. Yeah, so just by doing muscular overload, it's probably going to keep you healthy and keep you fit, but you're never going to make gains. If you want to make gains, you've got to go to fatigue, or even better, you've got to go to failure. We're now coming onto the subject of progressive overload. When you're doing your training to whatever level you want to, whether it's muscular overload, fatigue, or failure, you need to make sure that you are progressing in your training. And progressive overload means you keep track of the weights you're lifting, and you push yourself and you push yourself and you increase. So the best way to do that is to count your reps and work out at which point on those reps you reach muscular failure or muscular fatigue, or whichever level you're working at. Let's look at bicep curls. So you're working with a particular weight, you're working through the reps, you get up to 10 reps. It's fairly easy, you're reaching a little bit of fatigue. You might then decide to increase the reps. You get up to 12, maybe 15 reps. And at that point, depending whether you're working for strength and endurance, you might find if you're working for strength, anything over 12, you decide to increase the weight. And that's what progressive overload is. You work up your reps until you can do more than the standard that you're aiming for. If you're aiming for 10, you do 12. If you're aiming for 12, maybe you do 15. And then you decide that next workout, you increase the weight. Increase that weight, and you might find that you can't do many reps at all. You certainly won't be able to do as many. So increase the weight, and then you'll find you'll achieve muscular overload or muscular failure with a fewer number of reps. Keep at it. Never reduce the weight back down. Keep at it with that heavier weight, and gradually you will find you can start increasing those reps. It might take weeks, it might take months, but at some point you're going to get to that point where you can lift again 12, 15 reps, and that is the time to increase the weight again. So we're constantly progressing with those weights, and that's called progressive overload. So how long can you keep progressing for? Well, if you use the principle of progressive overload and you keep trying to increase the weights, ultimately you're going to reach what we call a plateau. And you're going to find you get to a maximum level and you can't go any heavier. That's the point to change your exercise and do something different. This is called periodization, and you might do it in 3 months, you might do it in 4 or 5 months, certainly no more than 6 months on the same exercises. I would say ideally 3 months. And then you change your routine, you bring in new exercises, different ways to train. You might find that you need to use lighter weights again, but then you start again with the principles of progressive overload and you start increasing again using your new exercise. And then after a few cycles of different exercises, you come back to where you started. And you might find that coming back to that exercise, you're not as strong as you were, but you will have made gains. And you will look at yourself and think, actually, yeah, I have increased my muscle size. I've got stronger and I've got fitter. And you keep going around this sort of loop with one exercise, progressive overload. You switch it up, you change your exercise, you do it again, and so on. And this is what serious resistance training is all about. And this is what I recommend you do if you really want to make gains and improvements to your muscular strength, muscular endurance, and of course, muscular size. For some of us, that's important too. For muscular size, you need to work strength and endurance in equal amounts or somewhere in the middle. I like to do a bit of both. Some days strength, some days endurance. So that's all I'm going to say today about resistance training. I hope you found that useful and you found out a way to build a strategy for increasing your muscular strength, size, endurance, and improve your overall health and fitness. Keep an eye on the channel. Please subscribe if you're not subscribed. Please like the video and comment below if you've enjoyed it. And I will see you again very soon for the next one. So do take care and goodbye.